Welcome to the Boulder Criminal Lawyer Podcast with Janene McCabe. I'm your host, Elena Nicole. In this podcast, we'll break down the criminal justice process and answer the questions many people have, but often don't know where to ask. From what criminal defense attorneys actually do, to what happens during an investigation or arrest, or how cases are built and defended in court. Janene McCabe is a criminal defense attorney and skilled courtroom litigator who has taken nearly 100 cases to trial, representing clients in municipal, county, and district courts. Janene, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So let's dive right in. So what happens after someone is arrested?
Well, lots of people think that once you're arrested, if the police haven't read you your rights, then anything that you say couldn't be used against you. And that's not exactly the case. If you are contacted by the police and before they arrest you, they are allowed to interview you and take your statement. It's only after they have physically arrested you, maybe placed you back in the back of a patrol car, that you're actually under arrest. And only at that point, if they choose to question you, are they required to read you your rights. So it's really important to not answer questions as soon in the process as possible.
Good to know. And what procedures are typically used during arrests?
Typically the police are going to do an investigatory stop. They're going to stop and talk with you. They're going to try and ask you some questions about the incident and about what happened. And as soon in that process as you can say, I understand that you have a job to do, you're investigating, but I'm exercising my right to remain silent, the better. But then after if they decide to go ahead and arrest you, then you should continue to remain silent. You shouldn't at that point take the opportunity to try and start speaking and change their minds. And then you should wait until you speak to a lawyer before deciding what to do with any sort of communication with the police.
And what happens during booking and processing?
During booking, you're probably going to be taken down to the jail. They're going to fingerprint you. They're going to make you get out of your street clothes and put you into jail clothes, and they're going to take your photograph. All of that feels very dehumanizing. You may have to sit in the jail until you can go in front of a judge to argue bond. All of this is very procedural. It may take several hours for you to go through that process. The point is to remain calm. Don't talk about your case. Don't insult the police officers. Be cooperative as much as you can, and that will only benefit you in the long run.
And what rights does someone have after being arrested?
You have all of the same rights that you have when you're first contacted by the police. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to speak with a lawyer. You can exercise those rights either before or after being arrested.
And how does someone properly invoke the right to remain silent?
The best way to do that is just simply to say, thank you for your question. This time, I'm going to choose to remain silent.
And what can happen if someone tries to explain themselves to the police?
That is such a common thing. I think people think if they just tell their side of the story, that the police will understand and that they won't be charged. But the reality is that too many times when you speak to the police, you may inadvertently corroborate some sort of evidence they have against you.
And how can someone stay calm when being arrested?
That is a real challenge for a lot of people. And I would say focus on the future. Focus on the fact that you're going to get the opportunity to tell your side of the story. It's not going to be right now, and you're going to have to hold tight and wait till you get in the room with your lawyer and have a better opportunity in a different environment to explain what happened.
And what behaviors can unintentionally escalate a police interaction?
Yeah, a lot of times people want to argue with the police about being arrested, telling them that they're making a big mistake, telling them that they're going to file civil rights claims. All of that might be true. You might actually have an officer who is roughing you up or not following procedure. But in the moment, you're not going to be able to solve that problem. So instead, it's really important to be cooperative because anything you say may be used against you, and it may come out at your trial if you are combative or abusive to the police officers.
And what should someone focus on in the moment to protect themselves legally?
In the moment, think about that everything that you do or say is likely being recorded. The police officers in Colorado are required to wear body cameras at all times, so everything that you do. And so you want to think about that and about portraying yourself as calm, cooperative, who really wants to help the police solve this issue, but solving it isn't going to happen by talking to them at that time.
So let's talk a little bit about how criminal defense cases are built. So how does a defense attorney build a case strategy?
That's a great question. First thing you want to do, again, is start with your client. What are your client's needs and goals? What are they immediately facing, is there a protection order in place that's removed them from their home and they need to figure out how to go and collect some belongings? Or is there some protection order that's preventing them from being able to communicate with somebody who really wants to communicate with them? So that might be a first priority. So it's figuring out exactly what the client's needs are. And then you want to think about their long term goals for how to resolve the case. So we're going to start with, is this a case for innocence where this person is just wrongly charged and needs to go to trial? Or is this a case where maybe there is something that happened and we need to try and mitigate the charges as best as possible? And so, really, it's all about finding out what the client wants, what their goals are, and then you build a case around that using investigation or mitigation and trial strategy.
So the strategy is really going to be based on the client's goals and the specific situation.
That's exactly right.
And what are criminal defense techniques that you may use?
A lot of the techniques involve us gathering evidence and gathering mitigation. So we hire investigators. We have investigators go, and now we have investigators, physically interview, but also go through social media records, go through phone records, go through anything that's on your computer to find out if that might be helpful. So there's a lot of techniques involving that. Also, we use social workers, right, to try and figure out if there's mitigation to present this person to the district attorney or even to the court in the best possible light, not just, the charges themselves.
And what are some common pretrial motions and why do those matter?
A lot of common pretrial motions have to do with illegal searches and seizures and violations of clients' rights when interviewing them and taking statements. So many times people may be out on the street or at their home and they're contacted by the police. And perhaps the police didn't have probable cause to do the search. And so a lawyer is going to take a look at all the information they had at the time that they conducted a search to find out, did they in fact have sufficient probable cause? And if they didn't, how do we keep the evidence that they collected out?
And what is the most common criminal defense?
Well, I would say the most common criminal defense is usually that the person is not guilty, that they didn't do the crime. Right. So you have disputes sometimes between people, fights sometimes between people. One person says they started it. In fact, that you didn't start it, that they in fact started it. And so it's just doing the investigation to figure out like why this person is not guilty.
Yeah. And what does challenging the prosecution's evidence actually involve?
A lot of times it is going through the credibility of the witnesses that are testifying against you. What do the witnesses have to say? What is their motive, their bias, or their intent as to why they're claiming that you committed this charge? And then is it supported or not supported by the physical evidence? Did they make a claim that can't possibly be true based on the time that they say it happened and maybe you were across town? And so those are the kinds of things that we would do is challenge the veracity of the witness as well as line it up with what's the physical evidence to support or to deny their claims.
What kind of evidence problems do you see show up most often?
A lot of times the evidence is not collected correctly or properly by the police, or maybe they didn't collect it at the time. Maybe they didn't realize that this specific item of evidence, like a knife, would be important and they didn't collect it. And so then they go a couple days later to collect it. Well, now that evidence may be contaminated because maybe somebody else touched it or it got moved, or maybe they didn't collect it properly with gloves and preserve the DNA that could be on that evidence. So we're going to check each piece of evidence, how it got collected, and if it was collected properly. And if not, has that tainted the evidence now?
And how does the defense team decide whether to negotiate the case or prepare for trial?
This all goes back to the client. What does the client want in terms of solving their case? Do they want a case to go to trial? Do they want to be vindicated at trial? Or are they a person that is more concerned about what might happen at a trial? Is there a better deal that they can take prior to trial that accomplishes their goals, but also leaves them so that they aren't impacted for the rest of their life?
That makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you so much, Janene. This has been such a great conversation about criminal defense, and we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks so much.